If someone gives you permission to engage for them, then you have some measure of authority in dealing with a legal right. But ultimately, the person themselves still has to deal with what gave the legal right themselves. You know, therefore, sometimes we can act in proxy if people can't do it themselves, but ultimately they still have to become free from whatever the situation was. They can't sort of, okay, we get a verdict from the court, but they don't apply the verdict. The verdict has to be applied for someone to be free and then someone to receive the benefit of that freedom. So ultimately, you can engage with someone in the same encounter and help them to deal with the legal right. But if you're dealing with it on their behalf, ultimately you still have to share with them what the accusations were, and they have to apply that legal right in their own lives. I remember many years ago when we were first engaging the court system, we had a lady who basically was in hospital in ICU, told she was probably going to die. And we, suffice it to say, she had many accusations against her, a lot of them to do with how she treated her body and how she was living. And we dealt with them on her behalf. We assigned, actually went into in the spirit, went into the hospital room, and within 5 days she was out and home. But then we felt we had to tell her what we had done so that she could own those legal rights or recognize what they were and then deal with them. But in reality, she refused to. She didn't want to own any changes in her life, or even own that she was contributing to anything in her own life. And actually, she was so insistent, she left the church and ended up in a motor scooter and all that sort of stuff because she didn't want to admit and own the things that she needed to change in her life to stay in health. And that's the truth for a lot of people. Just receiving healing doesn't mean health. Health is not just a state with no sickness, it's a state of mind and attitude in which you live in the benefit of a completely different relationship with God and with your own body. And it requires people to own that for themselves to stay healed. We did a healing outreach many years ago on an estate in our local town at the time, and we put a tent up on the green and invited people to come for healing. And there was this lady who came in with sticks, chronic arthritis, really, really bad, got healed, walked off, flicking her stick around her head, walked off. I went to see her a week or so later to find out how she was. She said, "Oh, I'm doing great, but I can't live without my sickness benefit. I need my sickness benefit to be able to live." I mean, I didn't say anything. I mean, I could have said, "Well, why don't you just go out and get a job, like other people?" But ultimately, so within a short period of time, she got everything back because she wanted the money for a sickness that she didn't have, and therefore she got the money back. She got the money and she got the sickness. And in a sense, there's a change of attitude and a change of mindset, and making sure that we do not stay in agreement with any legal rights or with anything in terms of where our mindsets are out of sync. And that takes a diligent effort from people, and a lot of people, you can lay hands on them, they could get healed, but that doesn't mean in their mind they're healed. They may have their body healed, but has their thinking changed to enable them to stay in that state of health? And some people just don't want to change. If they do want to change, then you can help them with the thinking and the processes. But often, if there is a legal right revealed, they have to accept that legal right to accept the verdict that gives them freedom from that legal right. And I remember that quite often when in the early days of doing court cases in heaven, people would be really reticent to accept the accusation because they just didn't want to admit. And ultimately, for me, it was like, well, put your hands up, accept the accusation, because even if you can't even agree with the accusation, probably generationally, there is agreement in that accusation in your family or whatever else. So in a sense, what's the problem? Pride, often. It stops people agreeing with the accusation because they don't want to admit anything. But you have to admit the accusation to receive the verdict of freedom from the accusation, and then you have to apply the verdict to stay free and maintain that verdict. Often there are neural pathways linked to behavioral patterns, and that could be including sort of thinking and other behavioral patterns that could lead to sickness. If you receive the verdict for health and wholeness, then your mindsets have to change towards those patterns of thinking. And some people are fearful. Some people are afraid of sickness, cancer, or disease, and that's what opens the door in the first place. Some people, when their mindset to do with those things, their thinking isn't aligned with the truth, and something happens, they get a symptom and they spiral down, and again, many times I talk to people, oh, I did a court case, and I said, well, how's that working? Well, it didn't work. Now, the court case worked. Their application of the court case probably didn't work because they thought it was automatic and they didn't have to do anything. But you have to apply it, and I think that's the important thing. And when you're working with other people, you've got to try and help them navigate through that process for themselves so that they eventually can maintain the power of the verdict in their own life. If you enjoy these videos, would you please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe? It really does help. Thank you very much.